what I'm going to be talking about today is, thank you so much, Victoria. What I'm going to be talking about today is healing energetic inflammation. And in order to get into why and how we should heal energetic inflammation, we should probably talk a little bit about what does it even mean? What is energetic inflammation? And what it really is to me is when we have a blockage of some sort to our true, full, authentic selves. And I would say that most people on this planet have exactly that. We are programmed to give up parts of ourselves as we grow up for who we authentically are and who we are really born to be. I have a little fly that wants to hang out with us on this cast. So as we grow up, we are conditioned to give up parts of ourselves to be loved, to be accepted, and it's really about figuring out how to be part of society, right? We're taught to be more manageable, we're taught to be more polite, and depending on what gender you are, what parts of the world that you grew up, there will be different versions of what this looks like. But generally, we're taught what is right and wrong. We are taught how to be a good person, how to be a bad person, which we shouldn't be. And in this whole process, there's a big part of us that is being left behind so that we can fit into these boxes. And the reason that we do that is it's really a protection mechanism. So I wouldn't come and say that it's a bad thing, it's a good thing that this happens, but it's the fact that it happens. So when we are born, and obviously, I mean, we do want to be trained in certain types of manners and understanding how we impact other people. But in some cases, and I would say in most cases, it becomes more an attempt to assimilate us. And when we assimilate, we give up a really big part of our uniqueness. I remember when I was a kid, I would be wearing big princess dresses and tiaras and jewelry, and I wanted to wear my mom's makeup and her whatever it was, right? That would make me feel like a princess. And from as early as I can remember, I had this idea that I came from a royal family and I had ended up in the wrong family. Sometimes I was a princess from Japan, not sure why. Other times I just said that I came from a kingdom on the other side of the sun. And I think I didn't really feel like I belonged anywhere. So it made sense for me to just make up a place. I don't really know where the idea came from, but it was a really big part of who I was this very princessy kind of personality. And other kids, they didn't like that because I guess they felt like I thought I was better than them. And it was never really about them. It was always just about me being a princess. And a lot of kids, they couldn't really handle that. So when I came to school, I faced a lot of peer pressure. I was the weird kid. I was super weird, right? Because my parents were all in on the princess game. They found it to be the cutest thing. So they let me wear these big princess dresses. There is a time when I was in kindergarten, and it's actually one of the very few memories that I have from being a very young child. It was freezing cold, it was snowing, and I wanted to wear my princess dress, obviously. And my dad said, there's just no way that we're going to send you to kindergarten in a dress because it's too cold. You need to wear something on your legs. And I just refused. I was like, no, I'm wearing this dress. I mean, who do you think you are? You think I can leave the house wearing pants? I would have been like 3 or 4 years old at this point, okay? I think around that age, maybe 4. And I just refused. I absolutely refused to leave I thought my dad had gone absolutely insane thinking that I would go to kindergarten wearing pants. So we ended up compromising. I wore the pants underneath the dress instead so that my legs could stay warm, but I would still be wearing my princess dress, which was very important. And when I then started school, I think it was maybe my first day or one of my first days. I would come in wearing my princess dress, and I had this little bag full of tiny perfumes that I had gotten from my mom or something. And they were very cute. I think it was Kenzo, this very beautiful brand that really likes to make things look pretty and with flower decorations and such. And I would come to class and I would sit by my table and I would open this tiny bag and then I would pull out these little perfumes one by one and line them up on my desk so that I can sit and smell those nicely smelling perfumes throughout the day. And my dad has told me, after growing up as an adult, he told me that your teachers, sorry, I have something in my eye. Your teachers thought, like, they didn't even know what to do with you. And this, wearing probably a tiara and putting out these little perfumes, sitting in my beautiful princess dress. And that was just the essence of who I was, really. It was just a really big part of my personality, was this things need to be beautiful and smell nice. And eventually peer pressure really got to me because, I was bullied so much and I didn't have the conviction in myself to stick with it. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of the cool gang. And the cool gang did not dress like that. They were wearing jeans and cool t-shirts. This is back in the 90s, right? And there was magazines back then had a really big influence. Movies had a really big influence on what are you supposed to look like. And I did not have the conviction in my personality and who I was to be able to really sit with that and to deal with that kind of peer pressure. So one day I came home, I told my dad I wanted a pair of jeans, and he told me it absolutely broke his heart the day I came home, and I told him I just want to wear jeans and a t-shirt. But it was such a big part of also the process of growing up. Because the more I tried to assimilate, the worse I felt. I really disconnected from myself. And the more I tried to fit in, the more I severed this connection from myself, the worse I felt. And even trying to fit in, it really didn't work very well. I wasn't very good at that either. So I spent a lot of my forming years trying to become someone else and really forgetting the essence of who I was. And I think this is where a lot of the energetic inflammation is really born for a lot of people. We really try to change ourselves. At least a lot of us do. I don't know a lot of people that haven't gone through a period of wanting to fit in and changing who they are to fit in. And what this really does is that it creates this disconnection. And when we disconnect with our authentic, unique selves, that's a really big part of where the inflammation starts. Because now we try to show up as someone else. We try to show up as the person that we think people will like. We think that people will accept. And all of a sudden, we start moving into living in our heads a lot. And in our heads, we're constantly evaluating, is this the right thing to do? What will other people think about this thing? What if I do it like this? And at some point, it also becomes, why aren't people doing this for me, right? Why does this person always do this? Why do they always do that? How come it's always, I have to work so hard on becoming this person? Why are other people not doing that for me? And that can become incredibly frustrating. So now it's birthing a lot of tension, a lot of frustration, a lot of resentment, a lot of victimhood mentality, a lot of judgment, a lot of blame, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. And many of these blockages feed into what I call energetic inflammation. So that sense of resistance, that sense of being in our heads and acting against what we deep inside know would be the authentic self. And as adults, a lot of us, we actually don't know who our authentic selves truly are. We don't know what we're passionate about. We don't know what we really want to do, what we would love to do. We can't really find proper direction. And we have spent so much time trying to, even when it comes to emotional management, I really dislike a lot of the conversation around emotional management, because what a lot of people have done in the personal development space is that they basically just say, Let's drown out all of the so-called negative feelings and then pretend they don't happen and then get into our heads and say, well, everything is fine and it's a beautiful day, and then drown those emotions. And that's what they call emotional management. And what that is creating is that we are creating this pressure cooker of emotions where we just keep stuffing our emotions into. And the more we disconnect from our so-called negative emotions, the more we will also disconnect from our positive emotions. And now all of a sudden, we're just completely disconnected. We're like a walking head. And some years back, I had a friend who was really pivotal in my journey of this transformation. She basically told me, "You're so much in your head that energetically I feel exhausted for you." She might not have used those exact words, but it was pretty much the message that came through. It was like, you're so much in your head. And my initial reaction was, where else am I supposed to be? I couldn't understand that there was a different type of connection to myself. And she said, you gotta let your head rest. You gotta connect to the rest of you. And again, I was like, but all of our thoughts are in our heads, right? What do you mean? I don't understand what you mean. And then I even asked her, what books can I read about what you're talking about? And she was like, stop reading books. Stop reading books. The books go to your head. Stop this. I just want to shake you. And I tried really to internalize what it is that she said, and I did not get it for a while. And then I started listening to people that are more spiritual in general, just listening to them, hear them speak. And I was told by someone, try to just check in with your gut, with your intuition once in a while. Try to just, oh no, I have been disconnected. I think I'm back. Anyways, I'm sorry about this disconnection. So I had someone say, just try to check in with your intuition, even with small things. You know, if you're looking at, here's an apple, do you want to eat this apple? And just check in with your gut, do you want it or not? Not from a point of, oh, I haven't eaten from this and that long time, I should be eating something now. Do it instead from a place of, does my body want this? Do I desire this or no? Not from a logical perspective, but from a bodily response. And even that in the beginning was so hard because I would look at this apple, and then whenever there was a sense coming in, I'd be like, but how do I know it's not just my head? Oh, it's probably my head talking, but I'm convincing myself it's from my body. Oh, I can't trust the messages that I'm getting through. And for a very long time, that was really what I was doing. For a very long time, it just continued to be doubting myself. But over the course of years, with daily practices, I did more of this connection. And it's a really big part of healing the energetic inflammation and connecting to our authentic selves. A lot of that work is figuring out what does it feel like to be me in a place that's like a pure state, from a place that doesn't feel like it's manipulated by thought or expectation or judgment or pressure from other people or shoulds, right? As my dear friend Victoria would say, don't should on yourself. So when we have grown up and we've grown into this state of really abandoning our authentic truth, the authenticity of who we truly are, then we don't even know what the authenticity feels like. And when we don't know what the authenticity feels like, it's like there's noise on the connection. There's white noise. There's the connection between where we source the energy from. It has blockages, it has irritation, it has inflammation. And when we don't know what it actually feels like, we cannot sense when that when those blockages are in place. Because if we've been in a state where it's always been blocked for as long as we can remember, then it becomes incredibly hard to discern, right now I'm blocked, because it feels natural. So a lot of the work that I have been doing has really been about connecting to the sense and feeling of pure emotion and disconnecting my head from it, just feeling it, just sensing it, and just feeling happy and just feeling joy and connecting with the emotions of what that is. And even when I'm feeling sadness, can I hold a feeling of sadness without letting my head come in and try to rationalize my way out of it? Can I sit with my sadness and feel what that sadness feels like and not judge it and not try to change it, but just feel the authenticity of that emotion? And when we've been taught that we should be less emotional on any spectrum, whether it's so-called good or bad, I don't believe that we have good or bad emotions. I believe we have emotions, and each emotion is a signal to us in terms of how we're feeling, and we can try to understand it. But as soon as we start blaming it or judging it or rationalizing it or getting our heads involved with that emotion, we add noise to the line. We add blockages. We infuse the source with this inflammation. So when it comes to really healing this work, connecting with ourselves is really important. And a big part of that is really observing with curiosity instead of judgment. Observing with curiosity and trying to understand, what is this really, and try to listen to ourselves without trying to rationalize it immediately. Oh, this is this because of that. Oh, this happened because of that. And very often when we get into this happened because of that, I need to blame somebody for my sadness. And therefore I get into figuring out who hurt me, who did this to me. And that just adds to the inflammation. It makes it worse. Because we're not truly understanding the authentic expression. We're trying to cast blame and we're trying to understand rationally. And we're trying to make it not our fault. So as soon as we jump into victimhood, as soon as we jump into shaming and guilt tripping and pointing fingers, whether it's at ourselves, we also, a lot of us have this incredible critical voice that has developed throughout our lives. And that has been exacerbated by the voices of other people in our lives that might have been really critical towards us. And now we have this very critical voice that is always telling us that what we're doing is wrong and we should do better and we should do this and we should do that. And that is such a harsh judgment of ourselves. That is not the voice of curiosity, right? That is the voice of judgment. And the voice of judgment just makes the whole energy a lot more inflamed. So when the critical voice starts to appear, the question can be around, I wonder where this part of this voice came from. I wonder what this voice is trying to tell me, really. What is this? How is this voice trying to protect me, really? Because a lot of our default mechanisms come from a place of wanting to self-protect. Our subconscious is really trying to protect ourselves and keep us in survival. And very often that means avoiding change. So a lot of the subconscious will come in and try to make sure that we don't change through feelings of resistance. And it can also be if there's a voice telling you that, oh, this is not good enough. What would happen if it wasn't good enough? Right? Sometimes growing up, maybe we were punished in some way if it wasn't good enough. Maybe we would have a parent or a caretaker or someone who's important to us who would be negative towards us, right? Criticize us, make us feel sad, make us feel like we didn't do good enough. And what can then happen is that we internalize the voice so that we make sure that we don't put anything out there that's not good enough, because then we don't have to face this punishment from someone that is important to us. And when we do that, it very often ends up becoming a block in our adult lives, because we end up never doing anything because it always has to be perfect. But if we understand that the voice was created in the first place not to make us miserable, even though that's very often one of the outcomes, It was put into place to protect us. And when we start really observing with curiosity and asking, what is this thing doing here? What is that thing doing here? How is this really helping me? What am I desiring from this and that? What's going on here? When we do that work, we get to know ourselves from a much deeper level. And when we see these mechanisms for what they really are, it's easier to release them because now we understand, okay, I see that you're here to protect me. I don't really need this protection right now. Actually, I want to try something different. And then dealing with that sense of resistance that comes up, right? Because the resistance really is avoiding change. We want to avoid, our subconscious wants to avoid change because no matter how we feel about now and all of these mechanisms that are in place that we feel you're sabotaging me, what those patterns are really doing is that they're preventing you from changing too much, because when we change, we don't know what happens. When we change, there's uncertainty. When we change, there's a void. When we change, we can't possibly know what's going to come for us. And when that happens, the subconscious feels like this is not safe. We might not survive in this. At least, and no matter how you feel about how things are right now, at least they're safe. At least we know you didn't die, right? You're alive. You might not be happy, but you're alive. Let's stay here. And that's why they say that most people will prefer a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. So the first, I wouldn't know, it's one of the many steps, right, to healing this energetic inflammation is starting to observe from the place of curiosity instead of judgment. It's starting to really see ourselves without trying to label it, without trying to say this is good or this is bad, just simply seeing, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what, I wonder how, I wonder why all of this is in place. And another really important step in doing this healing work is connecting to that feeling of pure emotion. And me personally, I love doing that from just paying attention to what it feels like when I'm happy. And not when I'm super ecstatic or super excited, but these little moments, and I talk a lot about glimmers, right? These little moments that just put a smile on my face. So that could be seeing a beautiful flower, smelling a beautiful flower that smells really nice. It could be seeing rays of sunshine coming through from the clouds. It could be saying hi to my dogs when they're coming to me happy and wagging. It could be seeing someone that I really love that just suddenly they're just there out of the blue. And all of these moments, they help me to connect with. And I start asking myself, where does this sit in my body? Where do I feel this in my body? And when I first started doing this work, I didn't feel anything. I only had the rational, logical response that this is supposed to make me happy. I understand why this would make me happy. And then I would put a smile on my face. But it wasn't until I actually started noticing continuously, constantly paying attention to where does this sit in my body, that I started having a bodily response, that I started feeling things in my body. And when I started noticing, okay, this is what joy feels like to me. It's like a really, really warm feeling in my chest and my solar plexus. It almost feels like the heart is opening, right? It's a feeling that I could have never forced when I first started this work. I had to just continuously pay attention. And then I do things similarly when I'm sad. I'm not trying to explain to myself why I'm sad. I'm just trying to figure out, what does this really feel like? And why am I experiencing this resistance towards it? Because sadness can really be beautiful. And I think it doesn't make a lot of sense when we just say, oh, sadness can be beautiful. But if you think about it, we can enjoy feeling sadness on behalf of other people. So a lot of people's favorite movies would be the romantic movies that are really sad, right? The Notebook, the Titanic, or whatever your favorite love story is. We would sit and watch these movies knowing how sad they are, and they would make us cry, and we would just still want to watch it again and again sometimes, right? Because it's easier to feel sad for someone else. Because we don't, and in the movie there's an explanation, we understand why they're sad. And then we allow ourselves to feel the sadness for them. But we struggle sometimes to feel the sadness for ourselves, especially when there's not a logical reason. And we have been really conditioned to believe that sadness and grief, these are bad emotions. And very often, if you look at this, there's this, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a list of emotions, and there's like a hierarchy to it. And then at the top, there's gratitude and love, and these are the good emotions. And then at the bottom, you have things like anger and grief and sadness. And then someone sat down and said, well, these up here are high frequency emotions, and these down here are low frequency emotions. But the emotion itself is not bad. The emotion itself is not low frequency. Makes it low frequency is the relationship we have to the emotion. It's a judgment that we hold against the emotion. It's because we consider it a negative emotion that the frequency is low. It's because we feel guilty or ashamed or wrong for feeling them. We've been taught that we shouldn't feel these things. But if you look at something like grief, that could really be one of the most beautiful emotions we could ever hold. When my grandmother passed away, my heart split open. I was heartbroken. But one of the reasons I was heartbroken was because I loved her so much. And when I was able to hold both of those emotions, the grief and the love together, it was like everything just exacerbated. And as much as I was feeling sad and I was feeling grief and I was feeling all of this that we were taught, these are bad, bad feelings, I was still so elevated from the deep, deep sense of love that I had for her. And I really don't think that grief in itself is a low frequency. Grief becomes a low frequency when we try to block ourselves from feeling it. Sadness becomes a low frequency when we try to block ourselves from feeling it because we judge it as being negative. And what we do is then we try to swallow it, we try to reject it, we try to not feel it. And what happens, it's like having a toddler that you keep saying, I don't want to have anything to do with you. You know, the toddler is going to come running at you harder, right? It's like, what do you mean? It's going to throw a tantrum. And we're sitting there really trying to just block it. I'm not going to look at you. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to try to understand you. I'm not going to give you any attention. I'm going to pretend like you don't exist. And then these emotions will eventually throw a tantrum. And it's that tension and that resistance that we have towards the emotion that make them low frequency. So when it comes to really healing this energetic inflammation, it is also about healing our responses and managing our responses to these emotions, removing the judgment towards these emotions and understanding them on a deeper level. Because as soon as we try to box things up and push them down into this pressure cooker, what very often happens is that these feelings will still be there, and then they will manifest as depression or anxiety or something else that it's almost like it forces its way through. But because we refuse to look at it, then we're just dealing with the responses that we're getting because they're forcing their way through, but we can't fully get through to ourselves and we don't understand where it comes from. And now we're judging ourselves from feeling depressed. Why am I feeling depressed? My life is good. Why am I feeling? I don't understand why I'm feeling like this. Right? It's because we're not allowing ourselves to really feel anything. Now it's throwing a tantrum. Right? It's our emotions that are forcing themselves out on you. So what happens when we disconnect ourselves from our emotion is that we also disconnect in general to ourselves. It severs the connection that we have to ourselves. And when we sever the connection, we cannot source our authenticity. We cannot source the light that we want in this group. It's about casting light, right, onto the world. Let's cast our light onto the world. We cannot connect to our light when we cannot connect to ourselves. It's almost like the wire, the electric wire, that is sourced from our biggest, most beautiful light and then out into our expression to the world. It's being cut over because we're not allowing ourselves to feel stuff, because we are judging ourselves, because we are blaming ourselves, we are shoulding ourselves, we're trying to show up as a version of ourselves that is not really true, that is not really authentic. And when we do that, we're showing up with this image of who we believe that we should be, then there's not a connection to our genuine sourced light. So healing energetic inflammation is getting really honest with ourselves and reconnecting. That can feel painful when you have been taught your whole life that emotions are bad and you haven't learned how to deal with emotions. And not when I'm saying dealing with emotions, I don't mean swallowing them and drowning them so that we can show up as more pleasant to the world. I mean, actually feeling them and accepting them and being okay with them and sitting with them and giving them space and just allow them to be there. Now, when we can manage our responses to the emotions. So if I'm feeling angry or sad, I can manage how do I talk to other people, right? What very often goes wrong is that if we're dealing with sadness and anger and frustration or something that just really puts a sour expression on us, and then someone comes and says something fully unrelated, and then we just end up pouring all of what we're feeling onto this person, which is very underserving, then that is when we want to manage how we respond. We don't want to manage how we feel them. We want to sit with them and give them space. We want to manage how do we respond to other people when we are feeling these emotions, right? We want to manage why am I responding? Why am I triggered by this? Very often when we're triggered by things, we try to cast blame onto the person that triggered us when actually the trigger is from within ourselves. And it's really about understanding why is this situation triggering me so much, and is the response that I want to have onto this person because I feel like just punishing them for triggering me, is that really warranted? Is that really deserving from them, right? Do they deserve this response that I have? Am I going to end up feeling really guilty about how I responded to this person? And this very often comes to, the people who are close to us in our lives, the ones where we feel like, oh, but they can't leave, right? They're stuck with me. They often get to see our very ugly sides because it's easier for us to just get this out towards them. And that really, that is kind of it gives you a really nice temporary release, but long term it doesn't work very well, because then this now adds to the feeling of guilt, the feeling of shame, the feeling of, oh, I really am not happy with how I responded to that situation, and now we're blaming ourselves and we're doing what we should. So it's also about how can I stand in full integrity with who I am. And this can become really difficult work when it then also has to do with how do I set boundaries. I feel like boundaries is something that it's important for us to set them, but sometimes it gets confused with I'm trying to control other people through my boundaries. A boundary is not telling someone you cannot do this. That's not a boundary. That's an attempt to control. A boundary is about what do I accept me to do? What do I accept being done to me? And then that boundary can be, if this is something that continuously happens, then I'm going to have to sever this bond between us, because I'm not going to continue to have this done towards me. And then the conversation can become, how do we handle this better in the future? But very often where you just want to say, you can't do this to me, or you can't go do these things, and you can't go do that. And then we're trying to control someone else's behaviors. And that's really not what it is, right? So how can we find deeper integrity with us and how we respond? How can we find deeper integrity with us and our personal emotions? And how can we find deeper integrity with how we show up in the world? How can we connect that to our values, and how can we connect that to our true, authentic expression? How can we reconnect with that version of us that we left behind so that we could assimilate? So this is really just an introduction to how to heal energetic inflammation. It's something that I will be bringing up in more detail moving forward. I'm thinking that for each of these calls, we can have specific scenarios or specific angles to it so that we can get deeper into it. But I really hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been interesting. I hope that this is something that you will continue to work with me on. This is something that I still do this work every single day. And the more I do it, the more light I experience. The more I do it, the better my relationships become. The more I do it, the happier I feel. So, yeah, I would love for you to do this work with me. And if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. If there's any particular part of this that you would like me to bring up in the future, please do let me know. I do want to make this as relevant as possible for people. So if there's something that you didn't feel fully landed, if there's something that you would like me to elaborate on, just let me know in the comments and we can bring that up in a future session. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me today. I wish you a beautiful day and I look forward to the next session. Bye.